evening. This is the Cannery Road Talk Show with your host, Caitlin Smiley, Guinevere Bobowitz, and our special guest, Christian Lamar.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, good evening.
Today, we're going to be discussing how Steinbeck portrays all of humanity through the characters of Cannery Row, specifically as a microcosm. First off, wouldn't you guys agree that Doc's a microcosm for religion?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I think there's a few things that can contribute to that.
Well, I personally took from him that his house symbolizes a church. For example, Doc always leaves his door unlocked at night, and he welcomes everyone to come into his house, and he never questions them as to why they came. Even when his house was destroyed by Mac and the boys, he never wants to lock it. And I believe that this symbolizes a church because a church is always a place of solitude you can go to, and it's a very welcoming place for when you're in times of need and you don't feel like you can turn to anyone else. And I believe that that's how the people of Cannery Row feel towards Doc's house.
Yeah, I think those are some very good points.
Great point, Caitlin. I think Doc can really connect to leadership within the church. You know, the church has a lot of leadership within its clergy and even God himself. So, for example, I think Henry sees, I know within the book, Henry sees a ghost of an adult man and, a little boy. And he goes to Doc looking for help. He's looking for Doc's leadership. He confides in Doc, wants Doc to help tell him what this means in his life, what, this is doing, what this actually has importance of. And it kind of alludes to prayer in the sense that people turn to God. They look for his insight in their times of need.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's some really good analytical points.
Yeah, I agree as well. What I have pulled out from Doc as being a microcosm is of religion and more relation is the scene of the parade that is happening on the 4th of July. Doc immediately mentions to his friend that he's having lunch with that Mac and the boys will not turn their heads to watch the parade go by simply because they have seen it before and they already know what it consists of. Even though there's much more meaning behind what he's saying, on a more so side fact, this contributes to the fact that Doc is all-knowing, and that can relate to, in a religious way or almost in a godlike way of God knowing all his children almost better than, we know ourselves, and this just makes it aware to the readers that Doc is aware of almost every character in Cannery Row, and his knowledge can help contribute to that microcosm.
Totally.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. Going into our next topic, I believe that a minor character that has a really good microcosm is Henry, and I believe he has a microcosm for fear of failure, because throughout the book, he's just building his boat, but he is afraid of the ocean, and he's never going to finish building it. Even Doc says that he keeps building it because he loves doing it, but he'll never finish it because he fears it won't ever be good enough. And I believe that this is a symbol of many people today that face blockades throughout their lives, which in result allow fear to hold many people from their full potential. And an example of this is that the boat holds Henry back from his love relationships because it's too small for two people.
Yeah, that's very factual and interesting as well.
Have you guys ever thought about Lee Chong? Lee Chong? I mean,
no,
he's
I really...
very, very important character.
Yeah, very
they
major
start off the book with him. He's the first chapter.
It's true.
They want us to know about him for a reason. And, as a microcosm, I believe he's a microcosm for charity within the world. Some instances in which he was charitable. Mac and the boys borrow his car. He lets them use his car when they have to go on their quest. He gives Mac and the boys a place to stay in the Palace Flop House, the old fish processing plant that was, given to him. They also paid him, in frogs. He allowed the boys to pay him in frogs. That's pretty charitable if you ask me. So all of this really leads to the fact that he understands, struggles of different people and allows them to pay him with absurd objects. They owe him a debt, and he collects that debt however he can, whether it's in the form of a old pickup truck, frogs, or anything else. He's always willing to accept what is given to him, because he understands people are struggling and don't have anything else to give him. He kind of symbolizes, within the Great Depression, like soup kitchens or today, homeless shelters or other ways that people try to help those in need.
Wow, that's some really good points. I never really thought of him that way. He always just seemed like the grocery store owner.
Yeah, I mean, now, Gwen, what would you say about the Mallory couple?
Well, the Mallory couple, I think, although is minor, are both two minor characters in the story, I still believe they have very much emphasis behind them as a microcosm of rising in a social status. Mr. and Mrs. Mallory, they find a boiler that was very old and was supposed to be replaced in a factory but never was, and they were smart enough to turn that into almost a little hotel. And before they found this boiler, they pretty much had no place to live, and they were as poor as you pretty much could be during especially this time of the Great Depression, but like many other people in Cannery Row. However, when they start renting out these rooms, more so in this boiler, they start making barely considerable decent money. And the wife starts to realize this, and, she starts wanting to buy things. And little by little, the husband starts to realize her head might be going down a wrong path by her thinking that, we're getting money, but we shouldn't be using it for the wrong reasons. As an example, for when she wanted these lace curtains to put in the boiler, but there was no windows in the boiler, so the husband saw no need. And, this can kind of correlate to people who start from nothing in society, but as they begin to rise up and build into something, they begin to lose sight of what's important and overall of where they came from.
Oh, I've never really thought
Absolutely.
of them that way.
Mallory's are very symbolic, and they don't play a major role within the story.
And I think that's really cool what Steinbeck did with every character in Cannery Row. They have some sort of microcosm or symbolic behind them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and each of them have a deeper meaning. You just have to dig into it.
Yeah.
Everything represents something else. It's true in every aspect of the world.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for listening to our Cannery Row talk show this evening. I think we hit some really good points on some really good characters and some minor characters as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for tuning in tonight, and we hope to see you next week.
Ooh, I'm Glenn Bowowitz.
And I'm Christian Lamar.
And I'm Caitlin Smiley.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Tune in tomorrow night. Woo!